No, I'm good.
Do you want me to?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April Board of Education meeting, and I apologize for the wait. For now, can everyone please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please take a seat. Okay, and we are going to begin our meeting with the approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2025 monthly meeting and the March 18th, 2025 special meeting. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And we are going to have Mr. Ostrick to report on the Citizen Finance Committee.
Thanks, Ms. Chang. At the Citizens Finance Committee, again, we discussed insurance. It is a popular topic because it is of incredible interest to us. We went over the fact that our RFP is out for insurance and expected back in May. I also believe that we discussed the providers on Nassau County, the fact that NYSER has almost all of the districts on Nassau County are the clients of NYSER. I think we also went over the discussion that we were going to begin interviewing insurance companies to make recommendations to the board, similar to how we made recommendations around the allocation to NICLAS for our reserves in terms of the interest that we could be collecting. I don't know if you guys remember that the Finance Committee interviewed a number of potential providers, and it yielded a very beneficial interest revenue source for us last year. It was like $1.75 million. Is that something? So the Finance Committee continues to show its worth. It's a very good collaborative opportunity for the board and the community to work together, and there's a ton of really talented and exceptional people who are dedicated and continue to show up at those meetings, and their recommendations for the board I expect to continue to be similarly outstanding. I think that was really the summary of the meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ostrick, for the report. And the next item will be Dr. Ruffel. Can we have the Treasurer's report and appropriation adjustments?
Okay. As indicated in the Treasurer's report, the cash on hand for the month end February 2025 was $89,618,320.08. It shows that bank balances for all the cash accounts were reconciled to the book balances and were collateralized in accordance with the district's banking agreements and investment policy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ruffel. And can we have approval of Treasurer's report and appropriations adjustment? Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? And the next item on the agenda is going to be the AI pilot presentation. Dr. Rogers?
Thank you very much. So as the team is getting ready to present to you, as the board knows, we've been working on pilot projects around artificial intelligence in education. We're excited to report to you on the progress of those pilot projects. I think our team has done some amazing work that we're very proud of and very proud to show you. And I'll just tee this up with a little story. I've been now at SIASA for almost 11 years. And the very first year that I was here, About 2 months into the school year, I went with the board to the New York State School Boards Association conference, and all of the board members and I were just going to the sessions that interested us. I walked into a session on technology and education that was hosted by Apple Computer, and as I looked around the room, I saw 8 of the 9 SIASET board members in the room, not coordinated, it had just sort of happened that way, and I said to myself, oh, there's a board goal around technology sitting right in this room. So it was clear to me that that board was interested in technology, and even though every member on the board has changed since then, the board's interest in technology has not changed since then. The other thing that has changed since then is what technology in education means. And technology in education, the work that we were doing then was around getting devices into more students' hands. The work that technology in education is going to be about for the next foreseeable future is certainly going to be about incredibly powerful tools that can help teachers do more work, help students work better, and can open up possibilities that we haven't even thought of yet. So with all that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Steinberg, who with many people has been leading this work, but he's going to kick us off.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rogers, Ms. Chang, the entire Board of Education, not only for the opportunity to present this exciting work to you tonight, but for supporting this work throughout the year. It's been a lot of fun for us. We've been doing a lot of learning, so we're really excited to share this with you. You're going to hear tonight from a number of different members of our staff and our faculty who are going to share with you the why behind our work. They're going to share with you the process of how we went about doing this work, and then they're going to share the great outcomes in a very short amount of time that they've been able to get here. So we're excited to begin. So we always begin this sort of work, we ground it in our mission statement, where we look at that the district is prepare students to thrive in both the future we imagine and one which may evolve in ways yet to be envisioned. And we intentionally underline that last part, may evolve in ways yet to be envisioned, because we actually thank the board for their work on this mission statement, because it really provides us a guiding light. And it's a challenge in some degree, because how do you teach students to be ready for a future that we can't even see? And when we look at this and we look at that word evolve, we kind of think of, well, we've got to then equip them with skills, and the skills that are going to allow them to adapt to whatever the future is going to be. So it's not necessarily teaching them about any particular content area necessarily, but yet equipping them with the skills so they can adapt and apply the knowledge that they're gaining to whatever the environment is that they're going to encounter 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And when we look at those skills, we specifically are focusing on skills like curiosity, mental flexibility. We want to talk about persistent, risk-taking, compassion, critical thinking, creativity, and of course, collaboration. So with that said, I'm going to invite Dr. Wojcik to come up and talk more about the board goals and these individual skills.
Thank you, Mr. Steinberg. Good evening, everybody. As I want to echo Mr. Steinberg and Dr. Rogers in saying that our educators are really phenomenal. So you're in for a real treat this evening to hear what they have to say. As Mr. Steinberg said, we really are very mindful, always thinking about our mission, and then really incorporating the goals that you've worked so hard to encompass together. So thinking about the board goals that you've just shared and how this pilot demonstrates those pieces of the goals, specifically creating those individualized learning experiences for students, creating an open-minded opportunities for students where they can explore new ideas and new perspectives, looking at utilizing and fostering technology in a way that promotes critical thinking and creativity through collaboration, fostering wellness, balance, an appreciation of multiple perspectives. So as we go through the pilots, you'll see that the board goals are deeply reflected in everything that we've done. Within that, we also take a look always at our why, looking at our instructional why as well as our technology why, and our obligation that we have to prepare our students to be responsive to this ever-changing world, to be adaptable, to have agency over their learning. And you'll see these whys interwoven into the pilot's that are demonstrated this evening. So at this point, I'd like to welcome up Ms. Christine Payne, our Director of Instructional Administrative Technology.
Thank you, Janet. Good evening. It's been 10 years with Dr. Rogers with the Technology Work Group. We started in 2014, and I really wanted to thank the board for allowing us to do all this amazing work over the past 10 years. It's really been very gratifying and very exciting. The teachers have always risen to the challenge, and I'm so very proud to be here tonight with our new AI committee and pilot participants. Just a little trip down memory lane. In 2014, Dr. Rogers asked 2 questions of the Technology Committee. Where are we now, and where do we want to go from here? With those 2 questions in mind, we started off looking at instruction, technology, and professional learning. Our initial pilots empowered teachers to experiment, engage in meaningful conversations, and to think innovatively. By 2016, we launched Pilots 2.0, which we named Adjacency Pilots, expanding on our work and resulting in over 80 new projects in the district. In 2017, we began the implementation phase of the work group, rebuilding our infrastructure and integrating our pilot projects into our instructional practices. In phase 2, we provided devices for all our students, reimagined libraries, and introduced flexible learning spaces with new technologies. Our robotics program and coding opportunities further broadened our learning experiences. In the spring of 2019, we rebooted the technology work group, focusing on digital resources, privacy and security, and professional learning. The pandemic in 2020 showed our strong technology foundation, allowing us to quickly transition to virtual learning. We were ready. Beginning in 2022, we continued to enhance classroom technology while actively increasing awareness in data privacy and how to create safe learning spaces. Now with the advancements of AI tools, we pivot and lean into this work with the formation of the AI Steering Committee, composed of teachers and administrators from all levels. I'm pleased to turn over the podium to Kelly Fokianos, our staff developer, who will continue our journey with our AI pilots.
Thank you, Christine. I share the same sentiments as Christine, Dave, and Jeanette as well, that this has truly been rewarding work, and I'm so proud to stand here tonight in front of everyone to share what we've done so far. So with the inception of the AI Steering Committee in the fall, we immediately took a deep dive into the understanding of how AI, this new, exciting, and promising technology, could be leveraged in education to support our district's mission, curriculum, and instruction. In September, we began exploring generative AI tools using Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini, both of which have data privacy and security safeguards in place for our district users. Our first task was to develop an understanding of responsible and ethical use around AI and to raise awareness of the potential biases that are inherent within these AI tools. In October, we began to provide direct training in prompt literacy, which put the educator at the center of our work. By crafting a detailed prompt and including attachments for AI to reference, a prompt became an effective way to brainstorm ideas quickly that were aligned to the teacher's instructional goals. The steering committee carefully reviewed proposals from across the district, and projects were approved. We quickly moved into providing professional development on data privacy and security, responsible and ethical use, and prompt literacy. In January, all pilot participants received a Google Gemini license and began exploring how AI could support their curriculum and instruction. During this period of exploration, there was trial and error, success and challenges, but across all groups, the exploration grew rapidly. As our prompting skills developed, the tools had evolved as well, allowing us to do more than where we started in January. The pilot teams had frequent opportunities to check in with each other, to learn how they were leveraging AI. We shared our prompts, processes, and the different ways teachers incorporated their output into materials and resources to support their students. In less than 100 days, from January to March, we had evidence that Google Gemini could amplify instruction. Teachers came together in an AI pilot showcase in March to share their successes with Google Gemini. Now I'd like to introduce Colleen Verline, our Elementary Technology Support Specialist.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Rogers, for this opportunity. What was amazing about this was that through the approval of 32 AI pilot projects that involved 94 teachers across all schools and departments, our district is advancing instructional innovation aligned to both instructional and the Board of Education goals. These pilots emphasize learning design, differentiation, sorry, I knew I was going to mess that word up, instructional support, and data-informed practices, all grounded in the educator-in-the-loop approach where teachers guide AI tools with intention and clarity. By designing experiences that promote wellness, balance, and multiple perspectives, educators are fostering a collaborative culture and creating individualized learning opportunities that meet diverse student needs. This initiative reflects our commitment to evolving technologies and cultivating the skills and mindsets students need to thrive in an ever-changing world. Now I'm going to bring it back to Kelly.
Okay. To better understand our AI implementation, let's look at a draft of our AI theoretical framework. When partnering with AI in our work, educators can leverage AI to engage with curriculum more deeply. This framework allows us to reflect on our various use cases with AI. First, AI can streamline tasks, creating more time for educators to focus on curriculum design and implementation. And these examples or these use cases fall on the left side of the spectrum, where AI helps educators complete tasks efficiently. This newfound time allows for a more thoughtful and elevated engagement with their curriculum. Second, on the right side of the spectrum, you'll see that AI can act as a thought partner, helping educators to critically examine their existing work and explore new, more advanced approaches. You'll see that our pilots span the spectrum, and in all instances, the teacher was at the center of the work, facilitating instruction and using AI as a partner to their work. So now we're at the fun part. We'd like to share with you a few highlights from our AI pilot showcase that took place in March. You'll note a few key takeaways from our next speakers. So the AI pilot program has unleashed a wave of teacher-driven innovation, which empowers educators to leverage AI in diverse and creative ways to enhance their teaching practices. From generating engaging content to personalized learning experiences and streamlining workflows, AI is transforming the role of the teacher, allowing for greater efficiency, personalization, and innovation in the classroom. I'm thrilled to introduce two incredible fifth grade teachers who have been at the heart of this work, Victoria Greco from Willits and Justine Constantinides from Berry Hill.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Rogers, and Central Administration. My name is Victoria Greco. I am presenting tonight with my colleague, Justine Constantinides. Together, we represent the dedicated fifth grade teams from both AP Willits and Berry Hill Elementary, which also includes Lorraine Avasis, Laura Albanese, Nicole Cordella, Megan Molina, and Stephanie Luna. We are excited to share with you our innovative AI pilot program this evening, a program that highlights the powerful synergy between artificial intelligence and the indispensable expertise of experienced educators. Our pilot program centers around an interdisciplinary Shark Tank project-based learning unit. This innovative unit began with a seed of an idea, a desire to engage our fifth grade students in entrepreneurial thinking. With the power of AI, we were able to take this initial concept and amplify it, generating a truly enriching learning unit. This approach directly aligns with the board's academic goals of cultivating collaboration through experience. as AI helped us establish a comprehensive backwards design framework based on our desired learning outcomes and goals. It's essential to emphasize that while AI served as a powerful starting point, its output required our expert human insight to ensure that the framework was relevant and applicable to our unique learning environment. We then leveraged our joint teaching experience and deep understanding of our students to adapt this framework. This critical human element allowed us to refine the unit into 6 objectives: interviewing, research, idea generation, product development, marketing, and pitch sales, ensuring they were not only ambitious, but also realistically achievable and meaningful for our 5th graders. AI provided a foundation, but our teaching expertise shaped it into a truly effective learning experience.
As previously touched upon, throughout the Shark Tank project, a key insight emerged: that quality of AI output is intrinsically linked to the quality of human input. Both teachers and students have been actively cultivating the crucial skill of effective prompting. Keeping in mind the board's goal of fostering a collaborative culture, this slide provides an example of a prompt that was utilized to generate a 10-question Google form with the end goal of grouping students mindfully for this project. As you can see, being specific is crucial when it comes to utilizing platforms such as Gemini. By providing clear, precise instructions, AI was able to better understand the task and generate more relevant results, such as the question shown at the bottom left. The data collected from the Google form was then uploaded back into Gemini, which analyzed the information. With some additional teacher prompting, Gemini then suggested groups that were differentiated by various strengths and abilities to enhance learning, sense of community, and to ultimately improve our academic outcomes. A sample of the output for this is shown at the bottom right.
So where do we go from here? We recognize that the project's success required diverse skills, and we are now extending our resources beyond AI. While our strengths as educators lie in pedagogy, entrepreneurship is not our primary domain. Having leveraged AI to a significant extent, we identified the need to seek guidance in this specific area. This led to an exciting collaboration with Dr. Parento and the virtual enterprise teachers at Syosset High School, creating a valuable bridge between our elementary and our high school students. We will continue to strategically utilize Gemini throughout this project and to further develop and enhance this dynamic unit. We are excited for the steps ahead and believe this pilot offers valuable insights into the future of innovative learning. Thank you. It is my pleasure to now introduce Tyler Gentlecore, 2nd grade teacher from Robbins Lane.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Gentlecore, and I'm a 2nd grade teacher at Robbins Lane. I want to start by thanking the board and Dr. Rogers for the opportunity to share tonight about an exciting project that myself and my colleagues have been working on. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of my team, including Jessica Rabano, Christina Sacco, and Melanie Spiegel. We were thrilled when we initially heard about the district's interest in exploring how AI can be used to benefit our instruction and our students' experiences. I started by thinking about my current students and their needs. I thought about a few students in my 2nd grade class who were reading far below grade level expectations. I was struggling to find books that matched their reading level, which would also foster their love and enjoyment of reading. Our idea was born from there. What if we were able to utilize AI programs like Google Gemini to create decodable texts that were leveled appropriately for students like these, but also had a storyline that matched their personal interests? We got to work, collaborating with each other to develop prompts that we thought were detailed enough to get a good response and a product from Gemini. But even with our detailed prompts, the results generated by Gemini still didn't meet our standards and expectations. We wondered, what if we provided Gemini with evidence-based research on characteristics of good decodable texts? I moved over to Google Scholar, searching for scholarly articles and academic papers which explain detailed criteria for strong decodable texts. I then uploaded them directly to Gemini and asked Gemini to explain what it learned from them and the criteria for evaluating the quality of decodable texts. From there, I simply asked Gemini to create a decodable text with a storyline about cats, keeping that criteria in mind. The result was far superior to what Gemini initially produced for us, but we still had to take the story that Gemini developed and make it a book that would be presentable to our students. I copied the story that Gemini gave me and moved it over to a template that we created in Canva. Canva utilizes its own AI model, which can be used to generate images that we could use for each page of the story. With these two programs in unison, we were able to create a printable book that we could actually give to our students. There are still obstacles and challenges that our team is working through. While Canva was able to generate pictures that we could use for our stories, each picture is different, and we haven't been able to create images with the same main character consistently across each page. But I think the biggest thing that we realized was the benefits of uploading documents directly to Gemini in order to get the end result that we were looking for. Once we understood that, our project began to expand into other areas. I used the phonics program Foundations in my classroom and wanted to explore how Gemini could create books with specific phonics skills that match what my students were learning in our current Foundations unit. I simply found documents that included the words that Foundations uses to teach each specific phonics skill, uploaded it to Gemini, told it what unit my students were working on, and had it generate a story from there. I copied it into the template we made in Canva, had it generate images, and now we were learning how to streamline the process and create books for different uses more quickly and efficiently. My colleagues who work on other grade levels quickly adapted this process to meet their own needs. Within a few hours, we had a kindergarten level text focusing on CVC words and a fourth grade level text to match a current social studies unit with an attached comprehension quiz generated by Gemini as well. While our project expanded into way more than we initially anticipated, our final goal was achieved. These texts were printed and put into the hands of our students. My student, who loves cats, now had a book personally leveled for her that matched her interests. All of my students now had a book to read that aligned with our current Foundations unit. We used AI to generate books that students would enjoy, and we got those books directly into their hands. My team and I are extremely grateful that the district gave teachers the opportunity to explore how artificial intelligence can be used to benefit our instruction and our students' learning experiences. This pilot generated a ton of interest and excitement between educators in our building and, most importantly, the children of Robbins Lane. We simply can't wait to see where our project takes us next. I'm excited to introduce Alexandra Guerin, 7th grade science teacher at HBT Middle School.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Guerin, and I'm a 7th grade science teacher at HBT. Thank you all for the opportunity to allow us to explore and utilize AI to benefit our students. I am excited to present on behalf of the 7th grade science team at HBT, including Krista Hatchadorian and Nicole Mosco Delgado. The revamp of our curriculum has been ongoing since the introduction of Next Generation Science Standards. We've done about 3 summers of curriculum writing in order to get our curriculum up to those standards. As our alignment has continued, we had the need for a new project to allow students to be creative and explore unique and diverse ecosystems while incorporating the content from our new science standards. This concept of understanding includes abiotic and biotic factors, organism role in ecosystems, or niche, feeding relationships, geographic factors that impact ecosystem climates, etc. Initially, we told Gemini to produce a project for us about ecosystems, but its first suggestion was not the direction we wanted. We can see the first prompt here on the screen. So we pivoted using our professional lens and gave AI the concept of creating a travel brochure inspired by our daily interactions with students. Students often comment on the images around my classroom of ecosystems and national parks around the world. So we wanted to incorporate their passion and excitement for exploration with their standards. Our project description is here, incorporating multiple steps and broken down so that students could understand each part of the project. We also put this into Gemini and asked it to create graphic organizers and rubrics for students, and they were able to utilize all of those artifacts to create their project. The project not only incorporated the use of those standards, but gave students the opportunity to reinforce vocabulary. Students continue to reference the project even though we completed it a few weeks ago during our discussions of ecosystems in the classroom. For example, students weren't formally introduced to the term apex predator at the time of the project, but many of them discovered that their focus organisms were apex predators, and now they have a self-derived example to help them understand that concept as we continue to learn. Here's an example of 3 panels of the final project of one of our students. We ended with a gallery walk of all student brochures, and students were really impressed with each other's work. Looking ahead, we hope to use Gemini to incorporate cross-curricular content with other subjects on this project. In English, they could do the research and the writing portion. In social studies, we can incorporate the 5 themes of geography or civil action, should an organism be added or removed from an endangered species list, and what qualifies an organism to be an endangered species. In math, we can calculate the ratio of the number of organisms of a species to the amount of habitat space available in that national park. The science team has also been working in a completely different area. Apart from projects, we've been utilizing AI to create assessments, focusing on the use of evidence. This has been vital because students will be required to provide evidence on Regents exams. And it will be required for students to analyze graphs and images. So here are 2 examples. The first initial image is what Microsoft Copilot was able to create when we asked it to come up with a predator-prey graph. Unfortunately, Gemini is not great at creating images, which has been a little bit of a hindrance for us, especially on the science team where we need graphs. We thought that the first graph was inappropriate for 7th grade students as it is confusing to read. So we came back and told Gemini that we needed a graph that was appropriate for 7th grade students, and the second image is what you see that Copilot was able to create. The 7th grade science team is very excited to continue to use AI in our adjustment to next generation science standards, and we're very excited to see where it goes. I would now like to introduce Dave Steinberg, speaking on behalf of the Syosset High School English Department.
Thank you very much. I'm actually here to speak specifically for Caroline Politsidis, who unfortunately had a conflict and couldn't be here, but she did want to share her work with the board because it's pretty impressive what she's able to accomplish. So I'm going to read what she shared with me as if I was Caroline, so please bear with me. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Caroline Politsidis. It's actually Dave Steinberg. I'm an English teacher at the high school. Unfortunately, I'm unable to be here in person, but I'm happy to present my team's work. I worked with Alex Herbert from the business department and Tracy Bryce in the English department in the high school on using Gemini to provide writing feedback to our students. We know that the most effective writing instruction requires frequent and timely feedback to our students. However, depending on the type of assignment and the number of kids on our rosters, timely feedback is a significant challenge. So we thought, let's see what AI, Gemini, can do for us. In our first trials, which you see on the screen there, we uploaded our department writing rubric to Gemini in an effort to train the AI engine on our Syosset-created rubric. We then plugged in a student writing sample and asked Gemini to provide writing feedback using the Syosset rubric. The feedback that it returned was, well, pretty good. It was specific, it was relevant. However, the teacher still had to read all of the essays. The teacher still had to read through whatever feedback AI provided to make sure it's exactly right. So in the end, it didn't save the teacher really any time. There was really no efficiency there. We concluded that while it would make a nice tool for students to refine their writing during the writing process, it wasn't saving us any time in the grading. So what's interesting here, I'll just editorialize that, is in this particular project, although Caroline and her team set out to really try to grade student work with this, they realized that wasn't worth the time to do that. But what they were able to discover was potentially they've created a tool for students to use to self-assess their own work. So in the process of them now creating their work, they could plug it in against the rubric and get a sense of, am I really getting this right, before they actually finally submit that. So it's interesting to see, and we've been seeing that throughout the projects. So that was their first example. The second example, and I'll go on in Caroline's voice, at this point we shifted our focus to writing instruction. We wanted to see if Gemini could help us provide targeted, individualized instruction based on skill levels. So we plugged in the following prompt. You are a high school English teacher and you have a student who has trouble writing topic sentences that respond to all aspects of the writing prompt. Come up with a mini lesson and writing exercise to help her. In response, Gemini returned a mini lesson that hit upon all aspects of the prompt and offered a strategy along with a model. Upon analysis, the strategy provided was reasonable and the model was simple and accessible to students. I had to prompt it to make changes to the text it referenced in the model, and the lessons needed a little more depth, but it was a good starting point to build on. In the final trial, I focused on students who were struggling the most with writing and for whom I've tried various supports with little success. I was much more detailed for this prompt, asking Gemini, you are a special education coordinator, and a high school student's English teacher noticed that he is having trouble with writing expression, particularly with composing paragraphs that effectively respond to prompts, with organizing his thoughts in a coherent response, and with clearly explaining how his evidence supports his claims. The teacher has tried creating checklists of things the student should include in his paragraphs and providing graphic organizers to aid in creating a fluid response. The student has not had success with either of these supports. Suggest an alternative support for the teacher to try with this student. Gemini recommended modeling a think aloud and collaboratively composing a paragraph. And these are excellent approaches, but in a class of 30, the one-on-one attention this approach requires isn't really feasible. So I had Gemini modify by generating the questions that would simulate the think aloud. This way, the student has the prompts on a worksheet to use for support during a writing task. So some of Caroline's key learnings and her team's key learnings and takeaways included collaborating with colleagues is the best practice as they are the experts. But when scheduling makes collaboration challenging, AI is a good substitute. It makes a great thought partner that fosters creativity. AI is never perfect, always needing refinement, but a great tool for generating ideas on how to personalize instruction, targeting particular skills, and for creating or curating resources for instruction. So what's great about this project and the many iterations that Caroline and her team went through is that some of it worked, some of it didn't. There were failures, there were some successes. And just to bring back an earlier point, all of this work that we've been hearing about, all of this happened in 100 days. And it's pretty impressive. And the group here, we talk often about what does all of this work look like in a year from now? What does it look like 2 years from now? So with that, I'll ask Dr. Wojcik to come back up.
Thank you, Mr. Steinberg. So, as you can see, the work from our educators is really remarkable. As Mr. Steinberg said, 3 months. They received their Gemini licenses in January, and through those 3 months, you can see that these pilots, 32 pilots, 94 educators, the impact that this has made in just 3 short months is really quite remarkable. The opportunity to build and develop and increase our professional capacity around the responsible and ethical use of AI has been remarkable. We've had opportunities to enhance and tailor learning experiences, specifically to engage students in the work, to make learning relatable, fun, engaging, personalized, individualized. We want to deepen connections. So we're looking at ways in which not only have connections amongst our educators been deepened, but looking at it from a K-12 vertical alignment and thinking about how, with example to the Shark Tank, how our virtual enterprise students are now mentoring our 5th grade students. Looking at how we elevate the learning amongst our learning community, and in 3 short months, that impact really has been quite remarkable. So with regard to next steps.
Okay, so as we've been saying, this is really just the beginning of the work. So we're using all of this, and with the 32 projects, you heard a sampling of those projects, and I wish we had enough time to share all 32 because they're just unbelievable, the work that's coming out of this. And it's really motivating. And one of the takeaways that we all have from this is that it wasn't so much about AI. When you have 94 teachers working on 32 projects, and then we brought them together to share out, it was the connections people were making with each other. the building of community across the entire district. It was amazing. People were deepening their relationships with one another, and that's really where the excitement was coming from. It wasn't coming necessarily from the AI. It was coming from, wow, what you do in 5th grade, I might be able to do that in 10th grade kind of thing, which was great. So we're taking that and launching that when we get into our superintendent's conference days in August. We're going to be facing this to the entire faculty. So we'll be sharing out all 32 projects with the faculty, giving now the entire faculty the opportunity to engage with the pilot participants, give them now an arena to talk about the work that they've done, to share it with their colleagues, and we'll also be providing training in Gemini to the entire faculty on the basic use of Gemini, and also the responsible and ethical use as well, with that focus on discrimination and bias, because as we know, these technologies have that inherently in them, and so we want to make sure that we are using it appropriately. And again, this is all for teachers' use. We're not facing this to the kids. This is all for our teachers to be using. We're going to look to support a 2.0 version of this pilot next year, invite more people into piloting this technology and see where that goes from there. And as we do that, we continue to explore where our student-facing Ed Law 2D digital resources are right now. So the students really don't have any kind of facing tool within the district. We know they're using it outside the district, but within the district, they really don't have any facing tools. They use Canva, which has some AI image production that they have access to, but there is no large language models that they're able to use. They can't use Gemini or Copilot or any of those things. And even with the teacher resources, there's a handful of other digital resources, I should say, that have AI components. So you might have heard of things like Kahoot and Nearpod and Pear Deck and these sort of tools. They're all beginning to embed that, and it's helping, of course, with the teachers to do that. So that's our goal for our next steps as we continue with this work. And again, only 100 days, so we're excited to see what the coming months and years bring with the work. And before we conclude the presentation, we absolutely have to just thank all the people. You heard all these wonderful people talk about their projects, their work, and we often say, around here, it takes a teacher. This work doesn't happen without our wonderful teachers, their commitment to our students and commitment to this work, and take a night off and come here and do something like this, and also to the other 90-plus teachers who were in this pilot who weren't going to come here tonight, but we do have to thank them as well. So thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the work. It's definitely very impressive, and I love seeing the building collaborations of all the teachers and then all the communications. It's really wonderful. And at this point, are there any questions from the board for the team? Mr. Ostrick, and then Mr. Ortolo.
So at the risk of making a statement, the words that you're using, I wrote some of them down, and I'm just looking out into the audience. Motivating, collaboration, excitement, energy, enthusiasm. The smiles on teachers' and administrators' face in the audience are so incredibly obvious. It is so obviously refreshing and innovative, and it's such a wonderful thing to see that energy coming back. Dr. Rogers, this is an excellent presentation and a program. I'm super excited that this came through. I have two questions for you, though. Can you help us understand two things? The first one is, if I think about the structure of where we want to go, or where you want to go with this and how to manage it, can you help us understand some of the goals you're trying to get at the end of it? Is it individualized instruction? Is it curriculum and content-based? And equally importantly, how are you going to, it's going to be a challenge for you to keep this from being more than just sort of a fun experiment and toys to play with, and have to manage that structure to get to the end. I'm curious about the two things that you have in mind, the things you have in mind. And the last thing is student learning, the prompts. How far away from the students actually getting engagement with this? Because it seems like most of it was teachers leading the prompts, and what's the timeline for that in your point of view?
So I'll answer the second question first because it's more of a logistics question than a goals and visions question. So right now, every technology tool that we use, whether it's AI or something else, just an email program, has to be EdLaw 2D compliant. So EdLaw 2D compliant, among other things, means that any identifiable student data has to be encrypted in transmission and encrypted at rest. What does that mean? At rest means when it's on a server at some server farm that's owned by whatever company it is, it has anything that it can be identifiable as student data, and that could be something as minimal as a student query or a student prompt in AI that is associated with that student, that is private to that student, that is actually termed student data. It has to be encrypted on the server, and it has to be encrypted as the student is making that prompt from their desktop, laptop, whatever, over the internet to the server. And then the company has to also sign a data privacy agreement that swears they will not use that data in a number of uses. They won't resell that data, they won't use it for targeting the student, they won't use it for marketing, they won't use it for a whole litany of uses. So a lot of the AI tools, and ChatGPT, OpenAI, sort of at the top of the list, refuse to sign these data privacy agreements with school districts. So the reason why we have teacher-facing and adult-facing tools is because we have EdLaw 2D compliant licenses for adults, for Gemini, for Canva, for Copilot, the Microsoft product. So we're limited right now because there isn't anything that's EdLaw 2D compliant. There are a handful of name brand AI tools that are working right now on trying to get EdLaw 2D compliance agreements through BOCES, and then through BOCES, all districts in the state would have access to those through a cross-contracting process. So I think once that happens and one or two or four of these name brand tools come up with data privacy agreements through BOCES, I think you'll see a lot more student-facing work. Knowing that the student-facing work is not far off, one of the visionary goals, now to return to your first question, for this work with the AI pilots was to get our team as familiar with AI as quickly as possible, because once we get it into the students' hands, it's going to take off. So some of this is just giving our folks a head start. So that's a very practical sort of Maslow level 1 kind of goal for this, but an important one, because I don't want our teachers to feel off balance once these tools are in students' hands. The second goal of this project was to see if we could identify places where it works and places where it breaks. So again, before we go wide scale with something, before we really start student facing it, if there are pitfalls, I would rather kick the tires with the adults and find out what works and what breaks, so that we know how to build guardrails around how we start using it when we're using it with kids. None of those are visionary kinds of things. Those are behind the scenes logistics. How do we build a ramp? How do we do this work correctly? The visionary part of this is twofold. One is, here are some of the ideas I think it could help us with. And if we could go back to the slide that has the continuum, I had the advantage of going to a presentation and seeing someone present this continuum, and then we decided to syosticize this and kind of build on it for our own purposes. But this theoretical framework, I think, is really useful. I don't know that there's one side of the continuum that's the good side and one side that's the bad side. They have different uses in different places, and figuring out what those uses might look like in Syosset, but in first grade versus 12th grade versus English versus art, we were going to need to have a lot of things going at the same time and illustrate where they fell along this framework. So part of this was trying to engage as many brains as possible in exploring to see what came out of that exploration. And then the most visionary part of the goal for this was to have people discover things that they weren't expecting to see. And I often find when I'm looking at data that the counterintuitive data point is the one that leads to all the insights. And I think that's also kind of been true here, as Mr. Steinberg alluded to, when Ms. Politsides was trying to create a grading tool. She found that she wasn't confident enough in the grading tool to cede control to it. So she repeated all the work that the grading tool did, thus doubling the work. But in effect, what she created was a tool where a student could have a really credible draft feedback, and they would know what grade they were going to get. They could turn this in to an AI that was trained on how Ms. Politsides would grade their work, and the AI would say, hey, you know what, if you turn this in for the final assignment, you're going to get a B+. And here are the 10 things that you could do to improve it so you could get an A+ instead. Now the student can take their original work, which they generated, use AI to reflect on that work against the framework that Ms. Politsides has, and come back with a sense of where they're going, where their work is and how it's going to land. So I think that was a counterintuitive product. That wasn't what she was aiming for, but ended up being kind of remarkable instead. Similarly, I was blown away by Mr. Gentlecore and that team coming up with decodable texts. If we buy these suites of decodable texts from textbook manufacturers, they're $30,000, $40,000 a pop. We're, for the low price of Mr. Gentlecore's evening, we're able to generate almost as many of these as we can imagine, but they're better in two ways. One, they're tailored exactly to the vocabulary that our student needs to master, and they are tailored to the interest that will keep our student reading a book that is otherwise probably not all that engaging. If I give them the same C-Spot Run book that everyone gets, maybe the kid who likes dogs will be engaged with that, but the rest won't. So I think it's a powerful illustration of tailoring an instructional product not just to a student's instructional needs, skill level, but also to their interests simultaneously. I thought that was a really remarkable and powerful tool, and I thought the illustrations were extraordinarily good, although I know the first draft, the leprechaun had 3 legs, and that was a problem. And then, lastly, again, the counterintuitive things, I think the Shark Tank, it's a fun exercise, and there's lots of ways that we replicate that. But to have elementary students progress so far with their Shark Tank projects that their teachers, adults, felt the need to recruit students from the high school with specific subject matter expertise to extend the learning of the students shows how much further the project went with the assistance of AI. And I think of that as AI leveraging task efficiency for the teachers so they maximize their time with the kids. So when all is said and done, and I've been saying this for a long time, but I think it's especially relevant now, the resource that is in shortest supply is actually not money, it is time. It's the student's time, it's the teacher's time. And when we come up with a tool that gets more out of the time that they have together, we have maximized the one finite resource that we have. Because the year is 180 days, it's never going to be 190, it's never going to be 200. Like, the time is finite, and this leverages time in extraordinary ways. And then, to that point, forklifting the whole new NGSS standards, which are at all levels, it's just a tremendous amount of work to redo 180 lessons worth of a year's program. And that's time that a teacher is investing in that curriculum and not necessarily investing in individual students. So if this makes that task more efficient, it's, again, leveraging time with kids. So it's a long-winded answer, but I think what I'm harvesting from this is I'm blown away by the creativity of all of the people who worked on this, but I'm seeing the potential even beyond this first round of pilots. And again, as Mr. Steinberg, Dr. Wojcik said, this is where we are after 100 days. I can only imagine what's going to happen after these tools are in people's hands longer. We go to the 2.0 pilots. You haven't seen some of the other pilots, which were also extraordinary. There's more good work to be done here.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Mr. Rotolo?
Thank you for that presentation, everyone. That was really good. So the board did, we visited all of the buildings, and I sat down, or all of us did, with watching the students in their day-to-day. And in the coding, and this was probably 4th or 5th graders, I was watching and asking them to explain to me, like, what are you doing, how are you doing that? And what I noticed was their thought process and what I was looking at was different, and I was like, wow, that's amazing that you're doing that. And how comfortable the kids were with the technology, and not also comfortable on failing and keep trying and keep trying. What I also noticed was that the other kids would help each other out, which was another huge thing, because they were saying, well, I don't understand this, how did you do it? And they were explaining it. So I guess my questions were, I saw like in 7th grade that like you were doing the graphs with some of the students. Are we planning at some point after we get all of our, I guess, clearances, are we then going to do some pilots with elementary school kids, high school kids, middle school kids, to see how they use the technology, because it's going to be different than how an adult or a teacher would view it? Because I, just sitting there that whole day when we went around and asking the kids questions and watching their thought process, I was so impressed. And I was so impressed because they were so comfortable, they were so mature on how they were dealing with these problems, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, I'll start answering that question, and then I'll let Mr. Steinberg, Dr. Wojcik chime in just a little bit. So some of that will depend on which tools are approved first and what order that goes in, but clearly we want to hear students' voices in this, and as you know, I meet with students as part of my student cabinet. We met with some high school students and had a pretty engaging conversation around AI, and they surprised me because I thought they were going to be anxious to incorporate it more into their work, and they were concerned that AI was going to rob them of their education by taking away the tasks that they knew were building their intellectual muscle. And so they were worried about going to the gym and having the robot lift the weights instead of lifting the weights themselves, and what that was going to do to their learning. So I think they're shrewd in how they are thinking about these tools. I think they're absolutely using them for task efficiency purposes, for sure, but I think they're also cognizant of the fact that there may be a loss from that. So how we navigate that tension and where we want to space kids along this theoretical framework is really going to be the thing that we're going to have to keep front of mind and be really thoughtful about, and maybe iterate a couple of times as we go through this with kids. So, David?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, because it's a really good question, and we have to remember that our students are using AI outside of school, right? So they're on chat. So they're already somewhere in this spectrum. They may not be able to identify clearly how they're using it. There are students who are using it maybe the wrong way, maybe the right way. So before we even face the technology towards them, we've got to educate them on how to use it responsibly, right? And so some of the work that's happening currently right now, it started over a year ago. We've always had digital media fluency curricula K through 12. But what we recognize now with this particular emerging technology is that we've got to amplify that curriculum across the board. And so we've been doing a ton of professional development, particularly our LMSs are leading a lot of that work. We're actually calling that information fluency at this point, and we're beginning to build that more robustly K through 12 and looking for those integration points in the curriculum. So it doesn't just live in a singular place, so that we build the literacy around that throughout all discipline, so that the students are seeing this in everything they're doing. So if someone's assigning a project in social studies, English, math, science, right, this is underneath it, and the kids are beginning to see it. So when we face the technology to them, that they'll already begin to have those skills developed.
And at the elementary level, the focus really is on digital citizenship. So understanding how to use digital access responsibly, what that foundation developmentally looks like, and then leveraging that and moving towards using AI and really becoming prompt engineers, understanding how to input to get what you need out of it in a responsible and ethical way. So it's the foundation building at the elementary level.
Okay, one more thing? Okay, go ahead.
Just an aside, all of those queries that we're doing, are we building our own internal database where then we're pulling from like our Syosset School one?
So that's a great question. We are cataloging our prompts. All of our pilots are cataloging the prompts and sharing the outputs so that we build an internal, capacity for us to be able to say, okay, this prompt, resulted in this, and so therefore teachers can share that. It's like a little catalog that we're creating.
Dr. Park and Ms. Edmondson.
Thank you for the presentation. My mind is completely blown. It's just amazing. And love the fact that it promotes collaboration, not just between students, but between teachers. And it also individualizes the teaching and learning. Anna and I were talking the other day how important it is for our kids in college, and they're always working together, collaborating, and when they go into workforce, that is another thing. So learning how to work together is a skill that they need to learn for the future. So I love that that's happening because of this. I have a couple of questions. The individualized learning, I think that's fantastic, having book that's tailored to a student, that's amazing. That will just promote kids to love to learn and read. That's just incredible. But how much time can a teacher spend for that child? Is it possible for literally to be individually teaching every child in class? Second question is, I learn differently than another student at a different pace. Will that create even bigger disparity between kids who can and kids who cannot? And is that okay? Kids who can just keep on going to the point where we don't expect them to, nobody else can expect to catch up. Is that okay? Is there a threshold that you hold all child to reach and say, keep on going using this AI and raise them up to a certain level? Is there something that you have that in mind? And how quickly can all the teachers adapt and learn this skill? Because if you have a teacher, if a student has a teacher who's fantastic with this skill versus a teacher who's not, then how do we even them out?
Yeah, so I think there were three questions there, right? Okay, so the first one dealt with time that teachers would need to create these tools. What we're seeing is like anything else, depending on how they're using it. So if we go back to this theoretical framework, and why it's a draft form is because we're developing as we're seeing how we're using it, so it's kind of developing alongside of us. So if teachers are using this to help them take care of a task that normally, that would take them time to do, they're gaining time back. So where it may be that they're using more time over here on a project that maybe is AI related, but they're also using AI to save them time on some sort of mundane task that normally would take them a while to kind of figure out. One of the projects we heard about tonight was using AI to create instructional groups. Right? Instructional grouping can take quite some time in the planning process. You have to go through each student's information and make sure you're really putting them together. But if you can leverage the AI and gain that planning time back, so now you've gained time from that task, that you can put that time now to maybe a task where you're developing something more deeply that you may ask AI to reflect upon that piece of work that you're doing. So time's an interesting concept, right? It seems to be a little bit malleable. And so it's hard to say in terms of that time, and that's part of why we're piloting the program. Yeah, you want to take that?
So, to one of the other questions you talked about, which was differentiating learning, we didn't see it here this evening, but several of our other pilots are really focusing on the diverse needs of students and how we can leverage AI to differentiate learning in a way that builds all of our students up and provides curriculum and instruction in different modalities. So as AI is evolving, there are things that our educators are interfacing with that allow students potentially to take notes, for instance, and make them into a podcast, and provide opportunities for students to interact and engage with the curriculum in a modality that's better for them. So that will help leverage the playing field. I think you were talking a little bit about that disparity. So some of our pilots are exploring ways that we could differentiate learning to kind of level that playing field a little bit more.
And the last question was related around the teachers learning, how much time is going to take them to learn. I think that was the question. So anytime we deal with professional development and teachers learning new skills, the beauty of that is that when you have a collaborative environment, a collaborative culture like we do, we have people who might be, let's call them speedboats. They'll run out there, they'll learn this technology. We have them here tonight, right? They'll go back and speak with their colleagues, and they will turnkey a lot of this. And a lot of the collegiate conversations that are happening are going to lift everybody up. We have more formal structures in place, our professional learning communities that are in place, where teachers can have carved out time during the school day to really work on a task together. We talked about a next step at Superintendent's Conference Day, where we're going to now face this to the entire faculty. And then throughout the year, using time like faculty meetings, department meetings also, where teachers will have time to work on this. And so everyone's not going to learn this at the same pace. There will be some people who are going to learn it quicker, but in this culture, in our learning culture, they will turn around and help their colleagues and work together on it.
I think we're also cognitive of the fact that everybody's levels and engagement with AI is different, and so we will meet teachers where they're at and support them with their level of comfort to bring them up and build their capacity as well.
Okay. Ms. Edmondson?
I have no questions left because everyone took my questions. But I do want to thank you guys because I think this was absolutely amazing. I am probably not the only one who does this, but I equate AI to like the internet, and we're taking the time to embrace it and collaborate and use it appropriately and teach our students, even if we don't have the forward-facing yet, to use it appropriately because they absolutely are, and they should learn how, and disseminating incorrect from correct information and so forth. I'm just very excited to see where we take it, and I'm glad we're not shying away from a new technology in our schools. So thank you again.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you again for that presentation.
Thank you.
So just in case I haven't sufficiently gushed all over you, great job. Thank you very much. Well, I was going to make one last comment on AI as the team is filtering out. At the presentation that I attended where we discovered this theoretical framework, the presenter took us through an exercise with one of the large language model tools and asked it to come up with a bedside clock that was showing the time of 5 o'clock. And the clock that appeared had the hands at 10 and 2. And then he said, show us a clock that is at the time 4:30 in the afternoon. And it again created a clock at 10 and 2. And so he used this to illustrate that AI is only as good as the data that it's trained on. And it turns out most images of clocks on the internet are images that are generated by companies selling clocks. And the reason why the hands are at 10 and 2 is because most of the numbers are visible, and usually the brand is just below the center of the clock, and you want the brand to be visible. So if the hands are covering up the brand, you won't know what brand clock it is. So AI is not very good at coming up with a clock that can tell any time other than 10 and 2. So I think it was a obviously very powerful kind of example of the limitations. The tool is not smart enough to say, oh, you want a 5 o'clock clock? Oh, the hands, the big hand goes to the 12 and the little hand goes to the 5. It just says, I know what a clock is because I've been trained on what a clock is. Clocks look like devices that have hands at 10 and 2. So it wasn't a surprise to me that our veteran English teacher felt like what she got from her prompts was kind of average, because everything that it's trained on ultimately reverts to the average. So I think part of what we learned from this is it is a great way to get an average starting point, but if we want it to be at our level of expectation, we're going to have to iterate and syostatize just a little bit. And that point about the clock is also the same point about bias. So if the internet is only trained on clocks with 10 and 2, it thinks all clocks look alike. That is at the heart of when we say there's bias in AI. The bias is based on the limitations in how it was trained and what data it's trained on. So I think there's more work to do with that, but it was good learning from this process to see where that bias, not necessarily ill-intended bias, but where bias is in the models and where average is in the models and where we are relative to that average.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Rogers, you're next for the Propel New York.
So we last spoke as a board about Propel New York at the December Board of Education meeting. I had reported to you on a meeting I had had with folks from Propel whose responsibility it was to talk to affected entities. At that time, we identified all right, I think I've done all the things right. I've done so many things right, we're done. All right, so this is an overview of the project, just as a reminder to everyone. The state has identified the need to transmit more power between downstate and upstate, which will help with congestion on the power grid. It'll allow more power to be available on Long Island. In order to do that, they're proposing to bury a number of high voltage power transmission lines. Two of those power transmission lines will cross part of the Syosset School District, so we're certainly an affected entity. And at the time in December, we identified as potential concerns 3 things, and those 3 concerns now with several months of developments haven't really changed. At some point, they're going to dig up the roads in order to bury these wires. When they do that, it will complicate access to our school buildings. It will complicate busing. One of the wires will cross Southwoods Road. We've experienced these last several weeks the impact of some construction on Southwoods Road. I expect this to be equally impactful. So it will certainly disrupt operations, and we would want any operations to be to have as little disruption as possible. The second is we are worried about potential utility interruptions, what might happen while this is going on. Our biggest concern is about the safety of buried high power transmission lines. We have no expertise in this. One of the lines will go in front of Robbins Lane Elementary School. Obviously, we want to make sure that the students in that school will be safe, both during the construction process and then after the wires are energized. So that's an important consideration. And we spoke at the December meeting about this will be an improvement, a utility improvement, and we want to make sure that it is assessed appropriately and that it is generating its fair share of taxes if it's going to be in our community. And obviously that's important to the taxpayers of the community. So those concerns are unchanged. The one thing I promised you I would do at the December meeting is what we did with the Amazon warehouse project. Because we were concerned about the site it was being located on, we hired an environmental consultant to advise us on the safety of the project and to make recommendations for how the project, if it was going to move forward, could be carried out in the safest manner possible. I think that's also, again, the most appropriate step to take with this project, to get someone with expertise in this area to advise us on what the risks may or may not be, and how to do this in the safest way possible for the students that we have in our care. So I have talked with superintendents of neighboring school districts that the power lines are going through as well. They have similar concerns to ours, and we're willing to collaborate with each other in order to share some of the costs of this expertise. So I think that will be an advantage to us to have others who share our interests and also want to make sure that their students are safe, so that the costs don't fall entirely on us as they did with the Amazon project. So we're being advised in this, of course, by our attorneys. I'm not familiar with this particular permitting process. I do understand that it's going through a couple of phases. The first phase was entities at the state identified the need for this additional power transmission capacity and went through a process of identifying who the builders would be and what the overall scope of the project would be. Now that that has taken place, the people that have been selected as the builders have to get permits for the plans that they have constructed. So that process is going through the Public Service Commission right now, and they were moving slowly, and they've started moving more rapidly in the last couple of weeks. So ultimately, the project can't start until they get approval from the PSC, and the PSC is moving through its approval process. So the project is intended to start, they're at least advertising a start in 2026 and moving through into the early 2030s. So this is not immediate to start construction. No sense of when necessarily the construction in Syosset specifically would occur, but certainly if we're going to engage with the permitting process, the time to become engaged with that process is now. So there are three ways that we could be engaged in this process. The first is we could monitor things that are happening, and that's certainly what we've been doing. The second is that we could submit comments, written comments, oral comments, testimony at every opportunity along the way. We took advantage of that with the Amazon project. Or we could seek party status in the proceedings. So if we were party to the proceedings, my understanding is that the best analogy is that these proceedings are like a legal proceeding. They're almost like litigation, and seeking party status is like becoming a party to this litigation, the end result of which will be some sort of a permit and likely a series of codicils to that permit that govern what is allowed for this construction project. So obviously having party status is a higher level of involvement for the school district. There will certainly be some cost involved, not just the costs that we were already planning on spending for our expertise to advise us on the safety of the project, but there would be some costs involved for legal representation. But we would also have the ability to participate in a more muscular way in the hearings that are taking place. Certainly as a party, if we were granted party status, we would have a more robust standing in our conversations with the PSC and with the applicant. And there's the possibility of being engaged when the applicant is going through the settlement discussions in this process that analogizes to litigation. We might be able to have a voice in some of those settlement discussions. It doesn't mean necessarily that our preferences will be followed, but it does mean that we might be able to have a voice. So that's not a decision that I can certainly make on my own. So I know later in your agenda you have opportunity for a discussion around that. I just wanted to set the table for that discussion by bringing you up to speed on what has been happening since our last conversation about this in December and what the choices are in front of you.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. And are there any questions from the board for Dr. Rogers regarding Propel New York? If you have questions, then you can ask. And if you want to save for later, that's fine too. Okay. Okay, then we're moving on to the next presentation.
Great. This will be the second update to the board on the progress that we've been making with the Anti-Bias Task Force's report from last year. We reported to you earlier in the year on some of the progress that we've made. This will be an update in the time since then. I think one thing that is apparent to all of us is how important this work is and the need for the work to continue to be ongoing. So I'm proud of the work that we've done. I recognize that there's more to be done. I think that the steps we're taking have been effectual, but the work is clearly far from done. So I've asked Mr. Steinberg, Mr. Karanishi, who have been co-leading this work for us, to update the board on where we're at and what some of the next steps we anticipate soon will be coming in moving the recommendations of the task force along.
Okay, so thank you once again, Dr. Rogers, Mrs. Chang, the Board of Education, for the opportunity to provide you an update. Our last update was back in October, so we're happy to be here to share with you some of the work that's been going on since that time. Just a quick reminder in terms of where we've been in the work. We did establish this task force back in November of 2023, and throughout that school year, the 23-24 school year, the task force was meeting and then provided the board its recommendations at the April 2024 meeting, and then the goals were accepted at the May 24th. And again, in October, we provided the first update, and here we are in April now with our second update on how the implementation is working to this point. We did, at the beginning of this, divide this across the 5 subgroups. We did lead with the student experience, because ultimately that's why we're doing this work. We're doing work around code of conduct and DASA, the curriculum itself, our recruiting, hiring, and professional development, and our community outreach as well. Our goals for the implementation have not changed. These are the same goals, so you might recognize the presentation as very similar to the October presentation because it is pretty much the same presentation. It's just you'll see some highlighted areas where the enhancements have been made since October. So in our student experience, you can see that we're looking at goals around creating data so we get a better understanding of our students' lived experience within our school days. We're looking to improve their connections by increasing their opportunities for discussions that bolster their sense of belonging, and then the idea of fostering empathetic and affirming environments and making sure they have trusted adults within the environment. So in terms of our student experience, you can see in the yellow points out the work that we've done so far pretty much since October. If we start with the data collection area, we see that, that Dr. Rogers, along with the cabinet, have met with each level, the elementary, middle, and high school. Dr. Rogers referred to this in the AI presentation, where we've had conversations not only around AI, we've had conversations around cell phone usage. We had conversations recently with the elementary students about the 5th graders and about how they feel about moving into 6th grade. And it was, it's always eye-opening to have those conversations. And we asked the students, one of the questions was, what do you want to accomplish when you get to middle school, right? And we thought, well, like, oh, I want to take this course, and I want to get this grade and that grade. No, they wanted to accomplish to finding their passion was what they were telling us. And it was so wonderful to hear that and so refreshing. They were looking forward to the different choices, the independence that they were going to get when they get to middle school. So that was real nice. So we meet with those students twice a year, and we just completed those meetings, which was great. Our belonging survey, one of the goals was to find a survey. We are currently using Thought Exchange, and we will be moving away from that platform and looking to move towards the Panorama survey. The reason why we like the Panorama survey is that the data is nationally normed on this survey. Also, the questions they provide are research-based and they're field-tested. So that helps to reduce the bias in the questions for us, whatever we decide to do. And there'll be more information following, in the future around Panorama, more in depth about how that platform is going to function. And then, of course, we've had the mascot selection work going on, where when we did send out the survey, just a little bit more than a third of the respondents have been our students, which is wonderful. that they're engaged in this process. We're hearing their voice on this. And currently, right now, the schools are working with the students, and they're talking about, once a mascot's selected, how would they like to reveal the mascot, and what that might look like. And so we have that work continuing. And the student connection work, which is consistently going on, some of the highlighted areas there is our Tech-Free Tuesdays, which is a new initiative of this year. Where in our middle schools, there's a Tuesday where there is a disconnect from technology, specifically during the lunch periods. So students aren't sitting on a Chromebook or their phone during the lunch period, but yet in the middle schools, they're providing activities, chess, board games, crafts, and on nice days, you see all the kids are going outside. You see a big difference. You see kids really connecting with one another, and in those student conversations, the students like those Tech-Free Tuesdays. Not every student, but most of the students do enjoy that, and they see the benefit of it. And that's sort of the purpose of that program, is for them to see that you don't have to be on a device. You can just go out and play outside with your friends, and that's a great way to connect with one another. We all know that we have the multicultural expos throughout our schools, which are just phenomenal, and those are in conjunction with our PTAs. And that's just a day of enjoying culture, enjoying food, enjoying our community. So those are wonderful. We brought back the multi-school Breaking Borders this year. We had 7 schools from across Long Island come here to Syosset. They spent a day talking about really the division in this country. And it was a very interesting conversation to hear the high schoolers talk about this with their colleagues, their peers from other schools. These are difficult conversations. These are what we refer to as these courageous conversations. They're digging into these things, and they're learning how to have those conversations. And not shy away from those conversations and stay present in those very difficult conversations. And we're also very proud of the mentorship work that goes on throughout the district. You heard that a little bit in the AI pilot, where we have the VE students at the high school working with our elementary students, but we have our 5th graders who mentor our kindergartners, and they read to them, and they're so very proud of that, the 5th graders, when you talk to them about that. They love that work. And our high schoolers, through our peer program, they'll go to the elementary schools and make that connection. So we're really beginning to sort of bolster that K-12 community and connection to the kids, which will help the younger students as they transition through the grades and through the schools as well. And the fostering of the belonging for the students, it's constant work that we're doing. It's constant work through the curriculum, where we're constantly looking at and evaluating curriculum for the materials. You saw, and again, the AI pilot in the decodable books. That idea of personalize that makes a student feel like, oh, my teacher sees me, this is where I belong. It's a wonderful piece of it. The enhancements that we made to the 8-9 transition by having the 8th graders visit the high school, and come around for the day and get to know the electives a little bit more intimately, so they feel like when they get to the high school, it's a place where they feel like they can belong. And then we had students this year, we had 5 students who participated, 5, it might have been 6 actually, who participated in the Witness Project, which is a project where students are paired up with Holocaust survivors over the course of the school year. And there's a culminating event where basically the students are on a stage in front of a crowd of about 2,000 people, and they're telling the story of that Holocaust survivor, why that Holocaust survivor is there in the audience with them. So it's very powerful work that's happening around the district to help students really have that connection and that sense of belonging in the district. So now I invite Mr. Carnici to come up and talk a little bit about the work that's happening around our code of conduct.
Good evening. As we know, our code of conduct ensures that our students feel safe and belong, and DASA is designed to foster an environment for students that is free from discrimination and harassment. So one of our major goals is to ensure that our code of conduct and our DASA reporting tools are accessible. The district has translated forms into multiple languages. We provided a plain language version of the code of conduct. We provided staff training and facilitated assemblies and presentations for our students. This year, the Board of Education reviewed, revised, and adopted its policy 5130, the Code of Character, Conduct, and Support, at its November meeting. The district also continues to engage in conversations to build student capacity around the Code of Conduct at the elementary level. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Mr. Steinberg, who's going to continue a little bit of leveraging AI with respect to the code.
Thank you. I'm just going to go back one slide to the implementation goals, because if you look at the enhancement of the code of conduct, one of the first goals is to create a user-friendly code of conduct. And that sort of was the impetus for the plain language summaries that were created. But now if you look at leveraging AI, we have a new tool in the district called Notebook LM. And we have a prototype right now where we were able to upload the code of conduct into Notebook LM and as a single source. And leveraging AI, you could ask the engine any question about the code. So for instance, you could type into the code about anything about consequence, about what happens if my student cuts a class 3 times, and what would happen to my student in that case. And you could ask it very plainly that way. And what the Notebook LM will do is it will use our policy 5130 as a single source. It will not bring outside source into it, and it will then generate an answer, okay, for you. So the goal of this prototype would be to eventually have that outward facing, so that the community would have access to a tool like that. So we have a few more steps to go before we're ready to actually outward face something like that, and hopefully we get to the end of that. But that's sort of where we're working and trying to leverage the AI to help to meet some of these goals as well. So that's just some of the work that I think would be good for you to understand that we're working on there. Okay? All right, so that brings us to our curriculum goals, and those focused around cultural competency and really social media. All right, and in that work, in the yellow highlighted areas, there's so much work going on in here, so we try to capture this in the update really in some broad categories. We've been talking curriculum analysis, so a lot of the work that happens on a regular basis, as you are aware, is that we have summertime curriculum writing. Teachers are constantly reviewing and revising as they go. We are also in the midst right now of creating templates to do some scope and sequencing work around specifically our secondary curriculum, which will provide us the ability for analysis for gaps and redundancies, which will help us to see where the opportunities lie then, where we have to enhance the curriculum and adjust it accordingly. It was a great month. We had iftar celebrations across the district. They were beautiful. The community came out for them. We had wonderful Holocaust remembrance events where we had Rosalie, a Holocaust survivor, who came to the high school to speak to our 10th grade students. That was followed up by an art gallery at the student lobby at the high school, that the art was inspired by the Holocaust. We had string instruments that played music. So it was a wonderful event that happened there. And our Lunar New Year celebrations across all our buildings as well. Again, just creating situations that all of our kids feel welcome, they feel like they belong, and this is a place for them, and also for a place for us to learn, because there's so much learning that happens there. And I will tell you, my first iftar was last year, and it was just incredible what I just learned, and I didn't know what I thought I knew. And so it's wonderful to attend these events and do that. And then identifying and incorporating culture-responsive tech. So at the elementary level, the continuation of the Literacy Matters project, where culture-responsive texts last year were infused in K through 5. This year, that work is happening in the 6th grade. And in the high school, it continues to happen. Most recently, the high school had its annual book day, and the book that the 9th graders read was the book Frankly in Love, which chronicles a Korean teenager and a Korean American teenager, and it's really about their experience growing up and dealing with parental expectations and things along that line. And it's a hit. It's actually the second time we've used the book with the 9th grade, and we bring the author in. The author comes in and talks with the students. So they really have an opportunity to engage in these kind of curricular activities. Then our social media goal, so there's been a lot of work around this. Most recently, the Nassau County Association of Secondary Superintendents, they have their curriculum committee. The curriculum committee is focused on social media curriculum. We have a team of our LMSs who are participating in that. So I mentioned earlier that we're working on information fluency curriculum that's been going on now for about 1.5 years, and it's going to continue to go on. This is only going to amplify that. So what our faculty is going to learn in this experience, bring this back, is only going to be better for our students as well. We'll make sure that we're not only the best practice, but we'll do what we typically do in SIASD, and we'll elevate that curriculum so that our students are getting what they need. And then we'll be integrating that across the curriculum as well. We discussed the Tech-Free Tuesdays already, and earlier Dr. Wojcik mentioned the digital citizenship that's happening across our elementary buildings. Okay. And I'll invite Mr. Karanishi back up.
So our implementation goals centered around the recruitment and hiring process, professional development, orienting our new faculty to the Syosset way, and our evaluation and accountability. So with respect to professional development, as it was mentioned in Dr. Wojcik and Mr. Steinberg's presentation, at our superintendent's conference day this summer, for the upcoming school year, we're going to provide training on responsible and ethical use, and particularly addressing bias that's often embedded and inherent in AI. With respect to recruitment and hiring, and we're in the thick of the process right now, to reiterate, the district subscribes to the belief that talent is equally distributed across the population. And we have two goals in our hiring process. One is to hire excellent staff and highly qualified staff, and also hire a diverse staff. We try to achieve both goals by casting a wide net to reach that diverse teaching pool. Our strategies include broadcasting, our postings on social media and networking platforms. This winter and spring, we attended in-person recruitment events where we interacted with hundreds of candidates. Currently, the district has 36 teacher vacancies, largely due to retirements. And in the last 2 months, we received over 3,500 applications for these positions. So orienting our new faculty to the Syosset way. Our mentorship program involves monthly sessions with our new staff that include training on inclusive teaching, addressing bias, and DASA. With respect to hiring, our administrative team facilitates a rigorous multi-round interview process. This process is not only an opportunity for us to evaluate those applicants, but it also for the candidate to gain an understanding of our district, our mission, and our high standards and expectations. So our interview questions and engagement during that interview communicate our values that are aligned with the Board of Education's goals of connected community and fostering inclusive and engaging culture, climate, and character. So in our line of questioning, we inquire about a candidate's experience and approach to teaching in a diverse, multicultural, multilingual, multi-ethnic school community such as ours. We ask, how do you generate belonging and inclusivity in your classroom? How do you develop meaningful relationships with families? And we always ask, how will you make us better? Because while we believe and know we are a high caliber, and we're proud that we're a high caliber district, we want our candidates to know that we have high expectations for them, and that we're always focused on improving as an institution for our students. So any of those applicants who are in the process, who do their research and are watching this presentation right now, are on have an edge because they just heard 4 of our questions. So with respect to our evaluation and accountability, we evaluate our staff based on the district's annual professional performance review, APPR plan. We provided a screenshot in orange there that is one of the 11 indicators that addresses some of what we hope to achieve as part of our task force. And so listed there is what constitutes a highly effective teacher, and it's a teacher who acknowledges student diversity, uses it as an opportunity to enrich the learning environment, and so that gives you kind of a glimpse of one thing that we touch upon as we evaluate teachers.
And that brings us to our community partnerships, where our goals here is just to help to bring the families together and to communicate, and that includes our branding and our marketing as well. And so when we look at our families, some of the updating that's gone on, and this has been a wonderful initiative led by Dr. Wojcik, is that we now have elementary curriculum parent workshops that help parents understand what the curriculum looks like at the elementary level. So already this year, there's been a workshop on math. And upcoming at the end of this month, April 29th, there's going to be a workshop for K through 2 on reading, and then 3 through 5, that workshop will happen on April 30th. So we're excited about that. I believe the attendance on that was quite high in the hundreds, I think the number was, and that's wonderful. It really says that there's a need for that, and we're meeting that need, and parents are learning more and more about that curriculum, so that's wonderful. And again, you see the multicultural celebrations up there, and our marketing and branding. So we've been having conversations around the portrait of the graduate, and you can see some of the skills and components that we'd be looking for our students to potentially be embodying. In terms of who they are as learners and as people, anywhere from curiosity to their cultural competence, and you see that theme running through the work that we do. It's not something that just sits up here. You heard it through the AI. You see it in many of the presentations that we talk about, because this is the shift that we're seeing. We're seeing a shift towards this skills development and assessment, and away from the knowledge and content assessment. Right? We still need that knowledge, we still need to acquire the content, but it becomes more about the content and knowledge to gain the skill, because it's the skill that's going to help our students adapt to a world that we don't know what it's going to look like necessarily. We recently launched a new district website, so that's great. So that becomes another way for people to connect with the school. And the fall, we'll be implementing a new communication tool called Parent Square, and our community-based mascot selection committee. So that selection committee that has about 70 plus people on that selection committee is still hard at work, trying to figure out what this mascot's going to be. So we have all that work going on as well as we continue to go. So thank you again for listening to these updates and for your support.
Thank you again. This is a really, really comprehensive list of updates since the last presentation last year. So really thank you in all these different areas. We just see a lot of new initiatives, and then also continuing the work that we've been doing. Thank you. And then at this point, are there any questions from the board? Okay, Ms. Abramson?
Thank you for the update. This is like a marathon, not a sprint, so we appreciate all the updates and continuing to make progress in these areas. I just wanted, you said the launch of Parent Square and coming fall 2025. Can you elaborate on what Parent Square is and the purpose of it?
So the purpose of it is to become a communication tool with the community, right? So it's a way for us to communicate in a single place where people can get this app, and then they have notifications and things along that line. So it's just a little more streamlined communication tool. That's about as all I can expand on it. Ms. Heffernan, who's working on this, probably can give a much better description of that, but I don't see her here. Oh, here you are.
Sorry, so it's district to parent, not parent to parent. It's not for the parents to connect with each other, it's for the district to connect to the community. Okay.
Dr. Park?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for making a strong effort to encourage teachers of diverse background to apply, and reaching out to them and encouraging them to apply. I think it's very important that our students experience viscerally seeing a teacher or somebody of an authoritative figure that they can respect, they can receive love, encouragement, guidance, and I think it's very important that all of our students experience that. So thank you for that effort. And I was wondering what changes you see in terms of pool of applicants and how diverse they are, and how it changed from your efforts that you put in.
One thing that I found is that it's and one element that I didn't include here are connections with universities and institutions, and then some of the job fairs that we attended, the recruitment fairs that we attended were Malloy, SUNY New Paltz, and other regions that tend to have populations with people of color, but also but have affinity groups and racial affinity groups that we can tap into. In terms of I'm interested in if you could elaborate more in terms of your question in terms of changes that I'm seeing
do you see more diverse applicants applying?
So, no, I think it's a good question. That's still something that I'm reflecting on, and I think and data that we're tracking in terms of who's applying. I think the reason why I like going to recruitment fairs is because you often, obviously we're evaluating, when you look at a resume, we can't make an assumption necessarily based on race, background, and because it's a piece of paper, and it's limited in that respect. So one thing that we're attending to is determining who's applying, and then to what extent can we then gauge what the racial, cultural, ethnic background is of that candidate. You can make assumptions based on what's on the resume. The reason why I think attending in-person fairs is then you can meet and engage a little bit more and then get a better understanding of who those candidates are. So that's information that we're tracking, and then we're going to evaluate kind of our hiring as well, as we've done in the past. And so I hope to have even more of a thorough response for you as we continue this work.
Mr. Rotolo?
Thank you both for a great presentation. Mr. Steinberg, I love that you have the Tech-Free Tuesday. And obviously this is both ends of the spectrum, because obviously we want to take advantage of the technology, but at the same time, we want to keep those human interactions and connections. And I think that the children want that. The students want to have, because you said before, what are students looking to do when they go to middle school? They want to fit in, they want to have friends, they want to socially be accepted, they want connections. And same thing as you were saying for teachers, Shani, is that maybe you don't remember what your high school chemistry teacher taught you, but you definitely remember how he or she made you feel. And that's going to go with you through the rest of your life. And same thing of how you fit in with the other students and how they treat you. So it's great that we have all this technology, but at the same time, at the end of the day, as we were saying before, when you leave school, when you leave high school and you go to college and then you go to work, everything is collaborative. You don't take tests at work. You ask 6 other people, what do we do? What do you think? How should we do this? So everything is, again, interpersonal skills, collaboration, learning how to work, and social cues. So I think all those things are important, and I think you're doing a great job of keeping this balance, because it can't be one way or the other, and you need that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there more questions? Ms. Vostrick.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, when are we going to get the survey data? The survey data.
So we're going to sunset, we have annual contracts for the survey instruments. So we're going to sunset Thought Exchange at the end of this school year. We're going to use the resources that we were using to pay for that to replace it with Panorama. We'll probably give that survey in the fall. I want to understand a little bit better if they have, again, they have research-based questions that have been field tested. So with a lot of the instruments that we use, there are testing windows that are supposed to be used in order to be able to have valid comparisons to national pools of data. So I need to understand a little bit better when those assessment windows are. But I'm imagining that if we did a fall administration, we would have those data sometime later in the fall.
And will you report on sort of your summary from the cabinet, your kid cabinet meetings at the same time as the data, in case there are any things that seem aligned, or, just.
Yeah. And I'd be happy to provide you with some summaries of my notes from the student meetings. They're ranging conversations, and obviously the 5th graders are interested in different things than our seniors. But we were just commenting, we were just meeting with the 5th graders, and we asked them what advice they would give to incoming kindergartners in order to be successful in elementary school. And they were so on point. It was, don't worry about everything, try to make some friends, but don't change who you are to make friends. Be sure to be yourself. because you're great just as you are. And they went through all of this, and we said to them, so how do you feel about entering middle school? And they shared some of their thoughts and fears, and we said, what do you think about your advice to kindergartners? Do you think it applies to you going into middle school? Be yourself, make some friends. And they were all like, yeah, that's exactly it. So just great conversations, and always eye-opening, always encouraging. So I'd be happy to work. We were all there. We all took lots of notes. We can compile some of those notes and share some of the flavor of that with the board. I'd be happy to do that.
Just a couple more. If there's someone else who wants to talk, I won't talk over them. How soon can we get parent to kids access to the AI code, simplified code of conduct, if we fast track it?
So the issue is not fast tracking. We have a working prototype up and running, and it is, I will say, impressive. So I've spent a little bit of time with it, and what we're trying to do right now is break it. So what I don't want to have happen is a parent asks a question of the AI tool that summarizes the code of conduct, and they get an answer that's going to be at odds with what they experience when they walk into the principal's office. So imagine a student makes a mistake, they're going to have a disciplinary consequence. Parent wants to know what to expect as they head into the principal. They type something into this AI, and the AI says, don't worry, it'll all be fine. And then they go into the principal's office and it's not fine. So we have been, Mr. Steinberg and I, and maybe others in the cabinet I'm not aware of, have been putting in tougher and tougher questions, trying to throw the AI and see if we can break it, and see if there are places where it does break, what do we need to do to shore it up a little bit. That's effort number one. So kind of like Ms. Politsides, I'm nervous about taking the training wheels off and trusting it to ride the bike on its own, just because of the nature of what it is. But it is an impressive tool. And I think it would be a real help to families if we could turn it loose, because I think it would be really helpful. The second thing that we have to do is we have to consult with our attorneys about whether we can use it. I can think of two worries immediately, and there are probably others I haven't thought of. Worry number one is a parent puts in enough data about the misdeed of their child to identify the student. Now that data lives in LM, which is a Google product. Is that data encrypted at rest and encrypted in transmission? I don't know. Where does that data live? Is it getting mined, et cetera? I don't know the answer to any of those questions. I don't know if what we've built, it's really impressive. I don't know if we built something that isn't Ed Law 2D compliant. And then the second thing is the code of conduct is a legal, as you already know, is a legal document, and parents can hold us accountable for the words in the code of conduct as we apply the code of conduct. Does creating another tool that spits out words that describes our code of conduct but hasn't been reviewed by our attorney problematic from a legal perspective? Again, we're asking that question of our attorney. She's engaged with us in that conversation. We're not there yet. So I have a couple of pretty chunky problems to solve before we can turn this loose and put it out in the wild.
Just two more quick ones, Dr. Rogers. The portrait of a graduate, I think, who is writing this? Are we going to write it up here? Is the staff going to write it, or is the cabinet going to write it? And how soon can we get that moving? Because the sooner we can communicate shared values on a consistent basis, I think the sooner we're going to have a much more successful reduction in misunderstandings in the schools.
I certainly think that we've made our values around diversity and behavior abundantly clear. I like the more generative approach that the portrait of a graduate represents, and it's definitely my preferred way of approaching this work. So two things are happening in parallel. We're certainly thinking about this, and the state is repeatedly said that they're going to release a portrait of a graduate. So part of what I've been trying to do is not go down so far down a path that we have to rethink what we're doing if the state goes in a direction that's completely different. So again, there's no reason why we can't be independent. There's no reason why we can't syosticize, but I also don't want us to do rework either if the state is going to do something that's going to cause us to have to backtrack a little bit and then go forward. On the other hand, I would have thought the state would be done by now. So at some point, we have to abandon waiting to see what they're going to do and just strike out on our own, knowing that the state's eventual decision may cause some rework on our part. I do think that a lot of the broad concepts, and I've referenced some of the things that you shared at last August's board meeting, ideas are common themes that I've heard in your conversations as a board, other school districts that are working and have done portraits of a graduate. So I think all of that is well formed in a nascent shape. I don't think that we've really brought some sort of final form to it, but I think we could. In terms of process, what I would suggest is that we work on first drafts as we do with policies and other things, and then have the board reflect and react on the first drafts that we create and give us feedback and direction.
Okay. Ms. Abramson.
Okay, if the tool for the plain language policy has legitimate issues, I hear all those things and I totally understand. In the meantime, are we working on something that can go up faster? Because that sounds like it could take a while to get through.
So the last time we did major revisions to the Code of Conduct, I'm going to call that 2018. I think that's the right year. We engaged large groups of teachers, parents, and students to write plain language codes of conduct for their own constituents, or their own peers, rather. So students wrote plain language code of conduct for their peers, et cetera. So the board has made a number of changes to the code of conduct over the years since then. Obviously, we've had some experience implementing this code of conduct and have seen places where you, as a board, have reacted to shore it up. And we certainly have the recommendation from the Anti-Bias Task Force to make it more user-friendly. So the process for doing that, I think, would look a lot like the process we used in 2018. That process took over a year because of how many people were involved. So the advantage is that it's incredibly inclusive. The challenge is that with all of those people involved in all of those thoughts, it takes time to grind through. I do think that what we achieved in 2018 was something that I hadn't seen any other school district accomplish, and in the 2 years after we did it, we got requests from dozens of school districts for copies of the code and would we care if they copied it, et cetera. So it really was, I think, we were leading at that time, especially around restorative justice ideas. I think a lot of districts have codes that now look similar to ours. So if we're going to engage that process, it'll be a big one. I don't think we could start that at the end of a school year, but I think we could lay the groundwork for it over the summer and start to engage in it in the fall. And I think both of these things can happen at the same time because the AI tool is kind of cool. You just ask it the question you care about right now, as opposed to flipping through 50 pages to try and find the relevant piece of the document. And then asking, can we organize the document in a different way? Can we make some of the language in the document clearer? That's a different question, but also an equally valid question.
Okay, are we all good? All right, thank you so much. Okay, thank you both for the presentation. Okay, now we have no legislative items, and we're moving on to our discussion items. And the first item on the discussion agenda is the Nassau BOCES Board of Trustees election. Since we met last month, there are two additional candidates for the BOCES board, and both candidates sent us the resume, and I would like to recommend the board for Michael Jamie for consideration. He's been the board president for Elmont School District for 14 years, and he has been holding a position in the National Suffolk School Board Association, and also as well as the New York State School Board Associations, and he's part of the board of directors, and also the National School Board Association. I'm the board of directors of NSBA, and these are the organizations that we SIASA has been working closely with. And I do know that Mr. Rotolo is also a member of the National Suffolk School Board Association on the Executive Committee Board. And so is Michael Jamie. So Mr. Rotolo, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Yes, so Michael and also Robert B.A. Schoen are executive committee members on the National Suffolk School Board Association. Michael, I've gotten to know, he's in Elmont, and he is very active, and actually he had helped orchestrate a revenue sharing agreement for 49 years with the new Belmont Park, which really helps his school district be able to afford much more educational services. So I've known him for a while. I highly recommend him. I think he's a great guy, and he's dedicated himself. He's on the national, he's on so many things, I don't know how he does everything. So yes.
He must be very passionate.
Yeah, no, he is very passionate. He really is.
Yeah. And then anyone else would have anything to add to it? Mr. Greco, please.
So obviously, I want to confirm we're obviously supporting Ms. Langsner and B.A. Schoen. So, look, I had a different take when I looked into the two of them, but barely. They're two very good candidates. So obviously, we're going to go with consensus here. But I think Mr. Pescarella is a very strong candidate. But listening to you guys today, if anyone else has anything different, I could go either way on this.
Anyone else? Okay, so for Michael Jamie, do we have a consensus to nominate him? 1, 2. Okay, all right. Yep. Okay, thank you. And then we're going to go to the second discussion item, which is the seeking party status for Propel New York. And Dr. Rogers gave us a presentation. I am not going to repeat the presentation only because I can't do it as well as you did. So at this point, I'd like to take some questions from the board, if there's any. Ms. Abramson, please.
So our discussion, just to be clear, we're just discussing if we're joining the party. That's the discussion we're having right now? Great. So I just want to clarify, when you join the party, the school district represents the school district, but in the party, the people that can be a party in this can be homeowners, districts, towns. There's different aspects of it. So everyone kind of represents individually. Is that correct?
Yes. There is a couple of judges that are overseeing this process, and what anyone can do is apply for party status, and then you're a party to this litigation, this negotiation. So a school district can apply for party status, a municipality can apply for party status, but even an individual homeowner can apply for party status. So any party is representing their interests. So that individual homeowner might represent their own interests, maybe proximity to where the lines are going to be buried. A school district, obviously the question before you, would represent the interests that are germane to the school district itself.
So I guess there's two things. The first is, can we provide information to homeowners to how they can apply to be part of the party? And the second thing, I guess I'm just going to give my opinion, is I think this has, being in part of the party, joining the party gives us potential to be in the room where it happens. It gives us a different kind of leverage, and I think that we're going to end up doing a lot of work on our own anyway, so I think there's a big benefit to us joining. So that is where I currently am, and that's...
So just to answer your first question, I would be reluctant to have the school district give a homeowner legal advice. And so how to become a party to this process might be legal advice, but what we could do is direct people to the resources that Propel New York has put online, and also where to find information about the status of this Article 7 process, so that someone doesn't have to go hunting over the internet to find it. The school district we can institute a web page where all these resources live, and then folks can go through there and look for what they need.
Mr. Greco.
So, Dr. Rogers, I think what you had on your slide earlier, preliminary concerns, your 3 concerns, I think are all valid. I think there's a couple of other concerns, such as whether we can be compensated. I mean, it's not a concern, that would sort of be our demand, but I think being a party here will benefit us in addressing all of those concerns. So obviously I'll support being a party.
Mr. Rotolo.
So, Dr. Rogers, my question, if we become a party to this, is this the best avenue for the school district to represent its interests for our students, our teachers, and our community? Is this the best avenue for us to basically represent them and make sure that our interests are met and we have some say in this?
Well, no matter what we have say, we can go to the public hearings, we can make ourselves known at those public hearings, we can put testimony in, we can do written testimony, so we always have the opportunity to be heard. What this will do is give us access to settlement conversations, potentially, information about what is occurring, possibly access to settlements that other parties are engaged in. So your question is this the best way to do it? The answer to that would be, this is the way that has the most tools associated with it. So nothing will stop us from advocating for our students and for our safety and all of those things, whether we are or not a party. We will do that. This is a way of doing that that has more tools at our disposal than others.
My main concern is the safety of our students, our teachers. Also, with this construction project, this is going to be a lot of traffic, so there's a lot of we have to reroute our buses, so there's a lot of other factors that we're concerned about and want to make sure that we're heard and that we're representing.
Are there, Mr. Ostrick?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this sort of brings 2 core values into conflict for me, which is, one, I always want to vigorously defend our interests as aggressively as we can, but I also don't like the idea of racking up huge costs to do it. Dr. Rogers, is there a way that we can do this so that we protect ourselves in terms of the cost, but still vigorously defend our interests if we become a party?
Yes, I think there's 2 ways to do that. As I shared with Mr. Rotolo, we never give up our opportunity to use our voice in the opportunities that are available to the public at large. So no matter where we are in this process and as it moves along, we will always have the ability to take advantage of that. I think you as a board can be kept apprised by our attorneys through me of how things are progressing and what the costs have been. And I think at any point in that process, you can make a decision that the cost-benefit analysis of these extra tools is not worth the cost of these extra tools to accomplish the goals, or we may be successful in having the 3 concerns that we've listed make it dispensed with early in the process, and that it might not be necessary to engage further. But I think what I'm imagining, and again, I'm not so familiar with this process, but I'm imagining it unfolding and us having some status reports to the board in terms of where we are cost-wise, what we've accomplished, and what we hope next to accomplish, and where we see this landing. And you as the board are always in the driver's seat in terms of directing us whether the strategy that we're implementing on your behalf is achieving the goals that you have for us as a board.
So, to conclude, then, yes, I would support it.
I was actually going to respond to Mr. Ostrich, but what I think is important, because I think that balance is important, is what Ms. Aberson said before when she mentioned this puts us in the room. So once we're in the room, we get to decide how much money we want to spend in the room to make the kind of demands we may have. But there's nothing forcing us to spend money, well, besides applying to be a party. And I think we can balance this down the road once we find out if we're a party. But being in the room is important enough that I think we should all consider doing this.
Okay, Ms. Abramson?
So, no matter, even if we didn't join the party, even if we were advocating without joining the party, there's still certain costs associated with protecting the three things that we need to protect. And because of that, just another reason why I believe we should do it, there's already the costs. I don't think they're the added cost that gives us the leverage that we get to represent ourselves the best way we can. And when there's no downside, if we can pull out, if we decide that it's not performing the way we want it to perform, then I think that we should keep going, because there's always going to be a cost advocating for this.
Certainly. I think you would absolutely want to make, of the three worries that we have, logistical disruptions, making sure that there's adequate taxation on this new development, and safety. I know that your priority is going to be safety. So if we have disruption to busing, that'll be awful, but that's in a whole different category from safety. So we're already planning to do the work with a consultant to advise us on the safety of how to do something like this safely, if that is possible to do. So, and I think I mentioned in my presentation that I had conversations with some neighboring districts that the transmission lines are going to run through as well. And they have the identical concern we do. And I think we can share those costs. So you're certainly, as a board, going to invest those, because I don't see you walking away from the safety question. And the good news is we have a way of sharing that cost. The same good news also applies if you seek party status, because there are some other school districts that are considering party status as well, and one or two that have already. And so to the extent that there are some legal costs, the costs that we have in common could be shared. So certainly I would endeavor, I'd work with our attorney to make sure that where possible we minimize those costs by spreading them over any other school district that wanted party status as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay. Well, at this point, we would like to move on to the walkout resolution, which is the Propel New York. And the resolution reads, 8B1 is the authorization for District Legal Counsel to take all necessary actions and filings with the New York State Public Service Commission to request party status. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. And Dr. Rogers, so we can get started doing the filings and everything. This way we can, get the approval as soon as possible.
Yeah, we'll start on that tomorrow morning.
Okay, we have no unfinished business, and we are going to move to new business. And 10A is the approval of staff changes. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? And 10B is the approval of stipends and hourly rates for 2024-2025. Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Falco, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 10C is the appointment of interim director of pupils personnel services, revised. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, second by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 11A and 11B can be taken together. They are the approval of the Committee on Preschool Special Education and Committee on Special Education recommendations. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Mr. Ostrich. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 10C is the approval of the 2025-2026 proposed Nassau Board of Cooperative Educational Services Administrative Operations Budget and 3 candidates for the Nassau BOCES Board. And these 3 candidates are Fred Langsner, Robert Sean, Michael Jamie. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 11D is the approval of settlement and release. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12A is the authorization of service contracts. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Koshia. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12B is the authorization for special education and/or nursing contracts. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12C is the authorization for health services. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Abramson. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12D is the approval of request for proposals, award for transportation for 2025-2026 school year. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions?
No, she didn't second it.
Oh. Can I? Oh, Ms. Levitan. Okay. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12E is the award of bid for partial roof replacement at Southwoods Middle School. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Koshia. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. 12F is the award of bid for partial roof replacement at Syosset High School. Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12G is the award of bid for switchgear replacement at HBT Middle School. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Abramson. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12H is the authorization for Type 2 action, CCRA, for projects included in the 2025-2026 budget. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12I is the rejection of bids for Syosset High School switchgear replacement. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12J is the authorization for contracts for Federal Part B fund. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12K is the approval of Student Club Charters 2024-2025. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Abramson. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12L is the approval of Student Group Charters 2024-2025. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12M is the adoption of grants. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Abramson. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12N and 12O can be taken together. They are the acceptance of donations. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions?
Dr. Rogers, when we accept donations of books, can you just remind us what the rules are for book donations and what the process is that they go through?
Sure, I'll give you the overview and then I'll look to Dr. Curry to help me out with the detail. So any instructional material that is acquired by the district, whether it is acquired for money or acquired for free as a result of a gift, has to go through a process where it is reviewed by the librarians, instructional specialists, et cetera. So sometimes we get donations of books from students who have written their own books. We had a donation this year of a book from a student written in a language that I can't read. So we'll need to recruit sometimes assistants in order to read the book to make sure we know what's in the book before we accept it. That whole process is led by our librarians, and I'll just ask Dr. Curry to walk through what does that look like in actual use.
Sure, thank you. So working alongside our library media specialists, both of our assistant superintendents for curriculum are an integral part of that evaluation, working with content area specialists, principals, teachers. And what they're using are criteria that have been established from various state and national library and literacy associations. And what they're looking for examples of the intended reader, the age and ability level. They're looking for interest, genre, accessibility, the diversity and complexity of the text, as well as text type and the way the topics are in alignment with our curriculum. The results of this analysis will then determine how and where the text would be adopted. Would it be an adopted text that would be appropriate for our building level libraries? Would it be appropriate for our classroom libraries? Or would it be appropriate for inclusion in our leveled literacy programs at various different grade levels? So all of that work comes together in order to determine where a particular donated text would best suit and fit the needs of our students, as well as offer an additional insight into the text that we have available.
So what happens, and this isn't the case here, but what happens if someone wishes to make donations of books that are of a religious nature?
There are texts of religion and about religion in school libraries. So it would go through the identical process, and it would be identified or classified as a resource that would be on a shelf and accessible to a student. But again, it's the same process. And so for the acquisition of other kinds of texts that are of or about religion, same process, go through the LMSs, work through the criteria that are established by these national groups, et cetera.
Right, but our policy pretty explicitly says that we can't accept books of a religious nature that would promote one religion or another, if I remember reading the policy correctly.
I guess not having read the policy as recently as you have, I don't want to try and quote from it, but I don't think that having a text is necessarily promoting a religion. So libraries are repositories of resources. Those resources include all kinds of texts, including sometimes sacred texts.
Sure, and I don't mean sacred text, but I mean instructional text books that might teach about different groups, different religions, et cetera. I guess my question to you is, we don't have a policy that I understand covering donations of books in other words, instructional support and libraries purchasing appropriate texts and books on this subject totally makes sense to me, right? There's experts, it's related to our curriculum. Why are we allowing groups or people or whoever to donate books that may be promoting either any specific group, religion, ethnicity, etc.? Why isn't that for the instructional libraries to make that determination? And I guess ultimately, don't we need a policy that governs it, because aren't we putting a ton on the librarians and not on ourselves?
So I'm not I don't want to accede to the premise of the question because I don't know if the premise of the question is true. Why are we accepting? I don't know that we are. But I would say the policy likely speaks to the promotion of some sort of religion, but the promotion of the religion, I do not believe, if you have a text that says, this is how folks who have these beliefs and faiths see that belief, this is how they explore their faith, this is how they express their faith, these are the tenets of their faith, these are important days in their faith, etc. Having that as a resource in a school library is not tantamount to promotion, so I don't think that it would violate the policy that you currently have. If you had a policy that said you want no materials of any kind that reference religion, we'd fall short of the state standards, which require us to teach students about a wide variety of world religions. And then as students are doing authentic research, you have to have authentic texts to do research from. So it makes sense and is necessary as part of the curriculum to have texts that would be a catechism, if you will, because those are the authentic texts you would use to do research about that religion in an authentic way. So if we were using a text to promote religion, that would be problematic, and we're promoting the absence of religion. That would also be problematic. So the school can't, as a public entity, we can't take a position for or against any one or all religions. So again, I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'm trying to answer it without necessarily acceding to the premise because I don't know if the premise is true.
Sure. Sorry to persevere here, but I guess what I'm still struggling with is then those decisions would be made by curriculum instructors and not by other folks who are deciding what to donate to libraries. In some ways, it's akin to, do some libraries accept dioramas or trifold boards about certain religious celebrations or anything from outside the school, and how do we determine which ones get posted or how they get accepted? I guess my question to you is, it seems like it's unclear to me where the decision gets made and how it gets made and where the limits are in terms of where the school is responsible for the curriculum or other folks are responsible for donating or decide what they want to put in our libraries.
All right, so I think the best way to answer your question would be to do some research and come back and explain in more detail exactly how that happens, because you're asking for a level of detail that I don't have right at my fingertips, and what I don't want to do is give you a sense of what my impressions are and then have misspoken. So I'm happy to do that research and get back to you on it. I think that all of this happens and as you've been enthusiastic about in the past, having strong partnerships with our community. So a lot of this is free exchange of ideas, and we're moving away from book donations to trifolds and things like that. We've often taken advantage of the knowledge of our families and parents as they describe cultural celebrations to us. So that seems all of a piece to me. So I think we can probably get back to you and elaborate on the procedures that are used, and it'll be educational for me to get even deeper into this topic, and obviously educational for the board because it's a topic of interest.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 12P is the disposal of broken surplus and or obsolete equipment. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Dr. Park. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? We have no audience to the public, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.